Hello friends, and welcome to The Hanged Man in the Moon. And welcome to my fairly new series I call Deck Dive. This is a series in which I take a deck and I work with it for about a month, and then I come in and I do a dive into the deck with the experience I've had with the deck from soup to nuts, from beginning to this period of time. And the deck I've been working with is this one. You might recognize the box, but unfortunately the title is not on the box. Yes, this is the Dream Vision Tarot. This is the second edition, which I'm afraid to say is out of print. And so you may be asking yourself, well, why the heck is he doing a deck dive into a deck which is out of print? Well, let me tell you. I got word about a month ago, a little bit over a month ago, that the creator of this deck was going to be publishing a third edition of the deck on Kickstarter about now. And so I decided, and I'm not getting any money, I didn't get a promise of a deck or anything, but I decided as a public service and for my own personal gratification that I would like to dive into this deck so that, one, perhaps I could help publicize the deck a little bit for the creator, who I think does beautiful work, and also so that I can decide whether I want a second edition of this. This second for me being the third edition, which is going to be slightly different. Now, the Kickstarter was supposed to have launched a couple of days ago, and right now it has not launched, and it could be because of tariffs in the United States, I don't know. But it is still on Kickstarter, and it's still giving us the option to notify us when it launches. So what I will do is I will put a link in the description box, depending on whether or not the Kickstarter has launched or not when this video comes out. I'll either put a link to the Notify Me page on Kickstarter, or I will put a link to the actual campaign in Kickstarter. Okay? So let me just give you a quick overview of what this deck is. Now, this is the Dream Visions Tarot, second edition. And the creator is Emma Zhang. And it was published in 2023 on Kickstarter as well. And it was published by herself, and I believe possibly printed in the United States, but I'm not sure. But I want to recommend this deck if it comes out. And I'm telling you in advance, I will recommend this deck because I think it is very intriguing, very interesting. And I've spent, like I said, a month working with the deck. So if you want to see what I think about this deck and why I'm recommending it, hang out for just a second. We'll turn the camera down and we'll dive into this deck together. Here we go. Friends, thank you for joining me on this deck dive into this beautiful, beautiful deck. And while I'm on thank yous, thank you for doing those things that you do, for hitting the thumbs up button, for subscribing to the channel. Your actions help YouTube to show our channel to people who might be interested in it, and if they join us, our community grows because of you. So I am grateful for those things that you do. Also, for those who comment in the comment section, you are a blessing to all of us, and I delight in reading your comments. So thank you for doing those things too. Now, friends, we've got this beautiful deck. The box is actually more sturdy than I thought it would be. I carried it around for about a month. Now I have a small leather case that I put the box in, so it wasn't just banging around my bag, but still, it's held up better than I thought it would. The design of the cover is nice, maybe a little bit over the top in image for me, maybe a little bit too busy for me, but still, it's beautiful. Let me show you the side. Lovely, yeah. The back of the box is also very tastefully done. It says here, second edition, Dream Vision Tarot. It says down here, awaken your knowing with the 78 cards. Unlock your own visionary power. See and feel what is already inside of you. That's the premise of this deck, seeing what's inside of you. Why it's called the Dream Vision Tarot. Here's the other side of the box. Here's the top. Lovely. Reminds me a little bit of the High Priestess. Yeah. Here's the other side. And voila, inside of the box. So this is what I thought would be a lot more flimsy. I was afraid that this cover, which is only attached by the paper covering the outside of the box, I thought that would tear fairly easily, but so far it's lovely. Now I gave you a sneak peek of a card, didn't I? Let me pull out the cards and the book and show you the inside of the box. Very simple, but like I said, more sturdy than I thought it would be. It's very nicely done. So keep that in mind. Box, wonderful. Easy to use. Holding up very, very well. Let's look at the guidebook. So the guidebook for this deck is very, very brief. It's beautifully done, I think, for what it is. It fits exactly inside of the box. I love the cover design. It's very simple but beautiful. I love the colors. Here is the back of the book about the creator. It says here that Emma Zhang is an award-winning designer and artist, certified. Okay, I'm sorry. This is remote spirit release therapy, medium and tarot reader. Following her spiritual awakening, she found her calling in life to transmit divine vision and healing energy to others. Dream Vision Tarot was created during her awakening process. In this deck, each of the cards are inspired by her spirit guides and divine visions that she received from the higher vibrational realm. DreamVisionTarot.com. Okay, so you get the idea of who she is and how she was inspired to create this beautiful deck. Now, inside of the guidebook, the contents are, calling them brief might be overstating it, yeah? But they are brief and to the point. Yeah, second edition Dream Visions. When you see we open the guidebook, we have a very small table of contents and we go right into the major arcana. Yeah, so we've got one page for each of the majors. One nice thing is that she does have planetary and astrological associations for each of the cards here. So we, for example, the Magician, we have number 1, the Magician, Mercury. Let me read you the page for the Magician. A shaman has mastered the magic of the 4 elements as represented by this card. With his skill, knowledge, and willpower, he can manifest anything he wants in his world. He is full of creative power. He is ready to perform a ritual to fulfill his dream. The presence of the shaman in the reading is a confirmation from the universe that you can do it. No more doubt about your ability. Success is right in front of you, as long as you are willing to act. So, very simple, very to the point. No futzing around, but not much description of the cards themselves, right? So for the major arcana, we have 1 page each. But nice thing is that when we get into the minor arcana, now one interesting thing is, and I think this is kind of clever, that she put the moon card on this navy background and the sun on the light background, and they face each other. We've got that idea of complementary pairs right here with the moon and the sun. And this is the only set of pages that does this. Just saying. And then we've got the world, and then we have the minor arcana. So, what she does for the minor arcana is she starts off with the court cards, yeah? Pages, we have one page for two pages. We have one page for each of the knights, a page for each of the queens, and a page for each of the kings, yeah? And then we go into the rest of the minors, and we have pretty much the same amount of information for each of the minor arcana as well. For example, Two of Wands. We have the astrological association according to her, and then we have about the same amount of information for the minors as there is for the majors, which I think is wonderful. She didn't skimp on the minors. You might say that you would like more information for the majors, or for the majors and minors, but it's a very balanced guidebook, which I appreciate. Yeah. I didn't mention, and I didn't exactly look, but let's see. So, for example, for the Knight of Swords, does she have astrological information about the Knight of Swords? His presence brings a swift change in one's life, the burst of air coming into the scene. Rebellious, clever, witty, and dashing, he enjoys intellectual challenges. The Knight is urging us to make use of our intelligence and knowing. It's important to be aware that thoughts come and go very quickly, ideas change very rapidly, and there is no grounding. So yeah, we don't have the astrological information for the court cards, but we do have it for the rest of the minor arcana and for the major arcana, which is nice. Now, there are no spreads in the book. There's no history of Tarot. Now we go to the end of the Ten of Pentacles. The page next to it is a special thanks page, and that's the end of the book, which is actually okay for me. Yeah. Again, the descriptions are brief, but it does cover a broad range of ideas for each one of the cards, especially considering how short the text is. There's no rambling, she's really to the point, and she does cover a variety of ideas for each one of the cards. Beautifully done, beautifully done. So that is the book. I particularly liked her take on the Six of Cups, for example. Let me pull that up, the Six of Cups. Why did I like it? Well, because of this. Let me read it to you. We've got 10 to 20 degrees of Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio. Now, personally, I do not read I don't read the Golden Dawn astrological associations of cards unless it is actually printed on the card. Yeah? But this is Golden Dawn associations, which is okay. Here we have the feeling of being a child. It's a card of nostalgia and happy childhood memories. Thinking about someone from the past or reminiscing about the past is represented by this card. All very standard. All very standard description. In addition, it carries an air of childish innocence and youthfulness. Playfulness, innocence, goodwill, and sharing could all be represented by it. At the extreme, it can also be seen as being childish or immature. So, she doesn't exactly have upright reversal meanings, but she does have a more shadowy meaning. Now, why did I like this Six of Cups? It wasn't just about nostalgia, and it wasn't just about playfulness or innocence. It covered that whole range for the Six of Cups. Also, not just remembering the past, but perhaps bringing those past feelings and the past experience of our lives here into the present. Yeah, where we can engage in the world with our childlike selves, right? We can bring our inner child forward into the current situation when this card comes up. Does that make sense? So I liked that take on the Six of Cups. It's not just memories and the good old days, but it could be a remembering of the present. Yeah, where we see the present with fresh eyes, with the eyes of a child, appreciating the present as a child would. And I liked that take. I really did. What else did I think about the book? Were there parts I read more than others? Well, every so often, I'd go back to see what Emma Zhang's thoughts were, especially as they are so brief and concise. But really, I didn't look at the book all that often. Frankly, I did look at it, but I didn't look at it all that often. And I'm definitely not dependent on it because there's no real description of the card that we're looking at in the guidebook. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is looking at her explanation and her description of the third edition, which will be coming out, the guidebook is going to be expanded with much more information. So when you go either look at the Kickstarter page or the announcement page for that, maybe I'll also put her website address in the description below so that you can check out her description of what the changes will be from the second edition to the third edition. You will see that the guidebook is going to be much more, information packed. Yes? So, very nice, easy to use guidebook, but the new one is going to be much more usable and have much more information. Now let's look at the cards, yeah? Let's see, let me show you the backs of the cards. So here is what the backs of the cards look like. Beautiful, lovely. I love the color palette of this deck. I love these intense jewel tones. These intense colors are just delicious to me. The cardstock is fabulous. It's a little small, so if you've got smaller hands, you might like this deck even more. Let me put it up against a US Games version. Yeah, it's just a little bit thinner. Do you see? Now, the length is just a hair shy. You might not be able to see that on camera. It's just a hair shy, but it is noticeably thinner. And it is a fairly easy deck to shuffle. We'll get to that in just a moment. But yes, the cardstock is great. It's got a plastic feel to it. So sometimes when I overhand shuffle, sometimes one card will kind of slip out and kind of want to turn over. I don't know if I'm describing that well. So for example, if I'm doing this, yeah, sometimes one of the cards will be brought up and want to, like this, will start to flip over like that. Not exactly jumping out, but start to flip over. And I will consciously or unconsciously end up trying to catch it between these two decks, between the two sides of the deck, so it doesn't go flying off. And when I do that, it makes a very noticeable loud sound. And let me see if I can get it to do what I'm talking about. Now, when I want it to do it, it does not do it, right? Let's see. Okay, so it's not doing it now. But it does make a little bit of a loud sound. It riffle shuffles lovely. This is not the full deck, but let me show you. Yeah? And it bridges beautifully. It's a lovely shuffle. If you've got large hands, it's comfortable. I imagine if you've got smaller hands, it's also a very comfortable deck to use. The edging, oh yes, the edging. Look at this edging. It is lovely, right? And I do not notice any chipping. I've been working with this for over a month, and most decks will start to chip. I do not notice any chipping with this deck, which is also wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's see. I think the third edition will be probably on similar cardstock, and it might have holographic edges. I'm not sure about that. That's just what I think. It wasn't clearly stated on the explanation page on her website. There will be holographic additions to the cards on the cup fronts, and I think the edges will be will be holographic too. I'm not sure. So, this deck is very comfortable for me. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's very durable. And you know, I'm not delicate with my decks, so that seeing it hold up this well is a good sign that it is a very sturdy and deck that will continue to look good over the years. Shuffling is easy for me. If you know me, you know that I'm a little bit clumsy when it comes to overhand shuffling. And for me, it's okay. It's a little bit sticky for the overhand, but I kind of like that. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit like what I was trying to talk about. But yeah, it's getting less sticky over time. Just a lovely deck to work with. Now, the artwork. The artwork for me is where it's all at, and I love the artwork in this deck. It's beautiful, it looks very simple, but it's deceptively rich in meaning. Yeah, for example, look at this page. Yeah, it looks like you can barely tell that it's what kind of a human this is, right? Is it male, is it female? We don't know. What race? Diversity is really not an issue for this deck because these beings are not entirely human, right? They're not exactly a racial kind of being. They're blue skin, they're green skin, they're orange skin, and they're all of those things. Body image, body size. I mean, would you say that this is a large body? You could, I guess, but they're so ephemeral that we don't really get the idea of this person is buff and this person is a little bit more plump or more rotund, and this person is older and this person is younger. I mean, the pages do look a little younger, but still, you know, they're not exactly human. Deceptively rich. So it looks very simple, but things to notice in this deck are like the hair. The hair is, I think, an important element of each one of the cards. Now, notice the butterfly here in the Page of Swords. Notice the light on the sword and the light behind the sword at the heart area of the page, right? Notice how the end of the hilt is glowing like a crystal ball. Now, notice the eyes. The eyes are beautiful, and the color of the eyes. Now, you say you don't see any irises, so there's no color to the eye, but what I'm talking about is the color of these slits is different and sometimes significant on cards. So there's a richness of detail that is not always evident the first time I see a card. And then notice how there's it looks like this sword is in motion because of the way that there's this, I want to say, a fog behind it. It's like this sword has been moving through and cutting through the air. You know what I mean? Now, unfortunately, it looks like the titles of the cards are not going to be where they are in the second edition. This is what I really, really liked about the artwork in this edition of this deck, is that the titles are here inside of the artwork of the cards. I think the titles are going to be down at the bottom for the third edition, which is, I don't know. I like where they are. I'm really in love with this deck. Okay, so what do we want to talk about now? We talked about the artwork and design. Let me talk about my favorite cards, and I've got a bunch of them. Now, if you saw my dive into the Ritual Tarot, you will probably remember that there were cards in that deck that I don't particularly like or that are challenging for me to read. There are none of them in this deck. Now, probably because this is a pretty simple deck. I mean, a simple art style, right? But look at this High Priestess. Notice that her veil, we've got the light and the dark. Instead of being pillars, we've got the light and the dark here in the veil itself. Now we've got the moon around her head. We've got this third eye glowing in the dark. Her scroll has the stars in them. just phenomenal. And we notice that there's a difference in her earrings as well. And what does that mean? What does that tell you? Will you see earrings on another card in your spread, and will they connect with this card, and what will that mean to us? You know, one thing that I really liked about the artwork in this deck in particular is there was a repetition of some symbols throughout the deck, which helped me connect not only color, but also element. For example, earrings. Maybe there's another card with earrings, and maybe I can see a connection between those two cards in a spread, right? Maybe there was a veil on another being in another card, and I can see the connection between that veiled being and this veiled being. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, so lovely, lovely stuff. Okay, I don't want to pick up the deck. I'm just so excited. Here we go with the next card, which is the Hierophant. Now, notice this. The Hierophant, we have the pillars. We have the dark pillar and the light pillar, right? But for me, because both of these beings have no hair, both of these beings have a similar kind of eye. Now, notice this one. Notice that the eye slits in the Hierophant, one of them is yellow and one of them is this bluish color, and they're opposite to the color of the pillars, right? We've got this DNA strand-like thing coming up from the top of his head, from the crown chakra, up into the universe, connecting up. And I can see a different level of association between the Hierophant and the High Priestess that I don't always see in other decks. Maybe because of the shape of the head, maybe because of the light and the dark being very pronounced in both of these. I love that we don't see the entire face of the Hierophant. There's just so much to this deck that I think is phenomenal. Look at this Emperor. Yeah, the Emperor himself has the ram's horns on them, right? We've got the scepter with the perhaps Mars symbol on it. Not Mars symbol. The Ankh. We have ruby here on his ring. Yes. We have the third eye, the sixth chakra lit up here. We see the shield on his shoulder. There are so many things to look at, even with such deceptively simple looking art. Lover's card, the lover card, yeah? Oh, I wanted to turn these over. I'm sorry. So that we don't get distracted. Here we go. So the lover card, love this one. Love that we don't have the angel there, but notice how their heads form the heart there. Looks more like a love card than a choice card for me, but still, it's a lovely card, and it's delightful to read with this. I love that. I love the hands. I love that we have this starry sky in what looks like perhaps the male-ish figure, and the female-ish figure has nature coming out of her eyes, has leaves for eyelashes. Now, we also could see that they don't necessarily have to be male-female. They could both be female. They could both be male. They're not all that... What? You can read gender if you want. You can read gender as you want, or you can read non-gender if you want to this card. Does that make sense? Love this Justice card. I love this for several reasons. I love that her fingertips are glowing and that she seems to be not touching the sword, which is also part of the scale, but she's also could be manipulating or energetically raising the scale in its balance. I love that the figure is very unclear, but the justice part of the card, the sword and the scales, are very clear. So the being holding the scales is not as important as the scales themselves and her hand, or his hand, or their hand, right? Just lovely work. Love this hanged man. Absolutely love this hanged man. I love the greenish tealish quality of this card. I love that we have a binary color to the hands, right? So we've got perhaps the light, the dark, or the active, the passive hand. We get that combination of colors in the face of the hanged man. The arms are bound, loosely bound, but bound by plants rather than ropes. I love that. And we could read this card as this being having deliberately chosen to place him, her, or themselves in this position, or it could have been done to him, her, or them, right? Love the aura around the head. I love that the aura is also shooting out rays of light as well. It's just lovely work. This death card, look at this. We've got the snake for transformation, right? Coming out of a skull, which is clearly death, plus the flower growing out of it. So we've got this idea of transformation, new growth, the flower. We've got the echo of the rose on the flag. It's there. We've got the stars here. It's just, we got the constellation. It's all fabulous. It's all fabulous. And here is the devil. Look at this devil. We got the chain here, but it's only around the devil's neck, right? We got the pentacle up on the crown. We've got smoke coming out of the top of the devil's head. We've got light behind. Yes, there's a glowing radiance to this card. There's a power shining from behind the devil. The devil might be blocking the power, blocking the energy, but it is there, right? And the chain around the devil's neck is loosely fitting, reminding us of the loosely fitting chains around the humans or the imps that are generally chained to the devil in other decks. Just fabulous. And love the colors. The fiery red, but the smoky fiery red in the background, yes? Little bits of that same color on the eyebrow area of the devil. Just lovely. Just lovely. Love the ears are a little bit pointed. And then this star card. Look at this. Look how the water is pouring from her hands, yeah? Look how the star is there somewhere between the 4th and the 5th chakra. Now we can see her eyes closed, but very much at peace with this halo around her head. And we get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars that we see in other star cards in other decks, but arranged a little bit differently. We don't see a bird on a tree or anything. This is a very refined image of the star being. But this water pouring out from her hands will often, for me, echo the water in other cards, and I can see a connection between this water, how it's pouring out of her hands, and where the water is in another card. Does that make sense? The world card, love this one. We don't see the four the seraphim or the 4 zodiacal signs, but what we do get is yellow, red, pink, and blue. So this could be, now I don't know. This area would be Scorpio for me, which would be a water sign, which wouldn't be yellow to me. But still, we've got 4 corners, right? We've got the wreath in front of the being, right? Tied just as it is in many decks at the top and the bottom with ribbon. We see the ribbon going around this person's head, he, she, they. Looking very much at peace. And this glowing orb right there at her 3rd eye. And so the glowing orb here, sometimes I can see connecting to a glowing orb on the 3rd eye of another creature in a different card. I love how these things work out. I love this 2 of Wands. Look at this, I'm going to say guy. This is a non-gendered guy, but look at this little guy. Look at this little guy. Here, looking out between these two wands which form this window, which he can see this whole globe inside and outside of the window. And it's like, look at all of this stuff. And I'm just this little guy right now, but I can see all these possibilities. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm seeing here? The Three of Wands, unfortunately, doesn't land as powerfully as the Two of Wands does for me. But like I said, there isn't a card that I dislike in this deck. I love this Eight of Pentacles. This Eight of Pentacles has showed up for me quite often as I worked with this deck this month. And several things that I love. I love that she is working with this one pentacle with what looks like a pen, but it could also be an etching tool, perhaps. I mean, it looks like a quill pen, but it could be an etching tool. So instead of pounding things with a hammer and chisel, this creature, this being, is working, doing a much more delicate act of creation, I think. Also notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm sorry. No, that's not it. Okay, so I'm sorry. Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 2 of the 8 of Pentacles, 2 of the Pentacles are her earrings, which could connect to another being's earrings on another card. We got the stars here, right? We've got how these discs are in her hair as well, and sometimes there are discs in other beings' hair. So there are so many things to look at if you're open to looking at them. Speaking of discs in hair, look at the Nine of Pentacles. Yeah? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then her hair forms the ninth. Love this one. Love the bird on her hand. I love the serenity that we see in her face. I love this large plant reminding us of her garden. I love how her hair just flows around in this circle of like a cascading wave of a bounty, of abundance. Yeah? Love all of that. Okay, let's turn these over. Now, the cups. I love all of the cups. I particularly like this Four of Cups. Notice how this figure looks like the face of ennui to me. Yeah? Looking down at these 3 cups, not noticing this bright, glowing, shiny one behind her, I see her head. But notice the stars in her hair. This could echo the stars in somebody else's hair. In one of the other cards. Yeah? This glowing cup, this light behind is significant. And her not paying attention to that, but paying attention to these, what look like very empty glass cups in front of her. Very interesting. Then we have the 5, looking more beyond ennui, looking like they've lost all energy, right? Looks to me like a guy, but could be a woman. Whatever. Their head is just like right down there on the cup. The cup has become a pillow, not for comfort's sake, but because of the total lack of energy here. Yeah, we notice there's that one cup upright that's left, but 1, 2, 3, 4 other cups. 2 of them are completely upside down, and 2 of them are on their sides, perhaps right now pouring out their liquid. And still there's light coming down from above. Love this card. Love the Six of Cups. Remember I said I loved the description of it in the guidebook, right? Notice how these 2 beings are not necessarily children themselves, but are bringing forth their childlike qualities and that flowery joy and that innocence of discovery here into the present moment. Love that. Love that connection between them, the connection to the natural realm, that the beauty of the flowers filling the cups. It's just all lovely. And then we also have stars in the hair, right? Whereas this card, no stars in the hair, the 8 of Cups. I love this one too. Why? Clearly walking away from the cups. These cups look empty, but they are upright. as they are in the other, like the Smith-Waite deck, for example. Love how her hair is going up into the sky as she walks away. Notice the earrings, right? I've connected, this cup has come up with the High Priestess for me in the past, and so her earrings and the earrings of the High Priestess really seemed to echo each other for me. I love the transparency of her clothes here, but she is definitely turned away and in the process of walking away, even though we've got a very close-up view of this figure. Notice the moon up there in the sky. Also reminded me a little bit of the High Priestess, especially in the way it's drawn, right? Two of Swords. I love this Two of Swords card. I love that the blindfold is woven into her hair. I love that. Yeah. I love the moon up here in the sky. I love that she is not only holding the two swords, which each have a glowing star in them. Yeah. She's not only holding the two swords, but she seems to be like she's holding them like you might hold a baby or a child. I mean, she's not cradling them in her arms, but she is holding them tenderly, rather than grasping them with power and trying to keep them balanced by holding them by the hilt. She is holding them gently against her chest. So there's a gentleness to this Two of Swords card that I don't see in any other decks, or many other decks. I love that we have a dark hand and a light hand here, reminding us that there are two different kinds of thoughts going on. Yeah? Or her reaction to the two different thoughts are different, perhaps. Then we have what? Then we have, the Four of Swords. I love this Four of Swords. I love that we've got a veil on this four. Yeah? With stars. Which also reminds me a little bit of the High Priestess. So we got that meditative idea, that meditative self-isolating idea of the Four of Swords, and then these four swords, these four ideas coming down on this upward-facing face. And I don't know, do you see this as being dangerous, or this being a way of receiving ideas? To me, it looks like receiving ideas from the void in meditation. Does that make sense? Six of Swords. Remember the Two of Wands where there's that little dude looking outside this huge window at this huge planet? Well, here we've got this little dude on this boat with the six swords being sent into the light by this large divine looking hand, right? Which I think is a wonderful take on this Six of Swords. Here, fly, be free in your boat with six swords, yeah? Be free, go into the light. Lovely, lovely rendition of this card. I love this Ten of Swords. Rather than the body lying down on the ground, I love that these 10 swords are coming in at this, I will say, guy. This looks like a male figure to me. But we also see the sun rise, perhaps, in the background, just as we see the dark night sky on this side where the negative thoughts are. You see that balance of the light and the dark here? Love this slit of an eye. Just phenomenal artwork. And I love, okay, so we're going into the court cards now. I love all of the pages. I particularly love the Page of Pentacles here. I love her holding this orb and the light coming down from the orb onto her forehead. I love her flowing green hair. I love nature in the background. I love the expression on her face as she's looking up at this disc and trying to study, what is this thing? Yeah? I love the Page of Wands as well. Look how this figure, boy or girl, doesn't matter, look how they are holding the wand and they're holding their hand up to what looks like a fiery tip, and they can't quite touch it because it's so hot, but they want to see how hot is it, right? They're exploring this glowing wand that they have in their hands and their yellow hair flowing up into the sky, perhaps from the power of this wand. And the orb around the tip of the wand. It's just lovely, yeah? I love the Page of Cups. Notice the three fish. Do you see the three fish swimming through the hair well, okay, two are in the hair and one is swimming through the arms of the page. And the page is holding the cup. We've got bubbles in the water. There's a very peaceful attitude to this. There's an introspective, I think, feeling to this card as well. And I love how intimate this page is with these three fish. It's just wonderful, wonderful, and wonderful, and wonderful. Speaking of cups, the Queen of Cups, I love her. Yeah, we've got the three fish here as well. She's definitely underwater. Do you see the collar on her? Reminding me of the collar on the Six of Cups, for example. Now her third eye is glowing. She looks like she might be contemplating as well. Actually, most of the figures look like they might be contemplating in this deck, but these fish are really bug-eyed, right? They're wide awake. They're paying attention. And notice her fingers are glowing. I don't think the fingers on the page were glowing in the Page of Cups. No, not really, right? There's a little bit of light coming down on the page's arm, but here, the Queen's fingers are definitely glowing, and maybe she is using her energy to suspend this cup in the water. And then we have the Knight of Cups. Look at this knight. Look at the fish and the cup coming out of his head and the flowers. Very romantic looking. He speaks flowers, right? There's a flower coming out of his mouth. There are flowers coming out of his head. There's a fish coming out of his head and a cup coming out of his head. Just phenomenal. And then the King of Cups. Notice how he is partially submerged in the water but partially out of the water, right? Holding a fish in a cup. Bringing the cup of fish up out of the water, perhaps, or maybe returning to the water. Notice how there's this stream of light hitting what is probably an alien-shaped head. I don't know what this is, but there's beauty of form to this king. Love the light on his cheekbones and the ears. It's just a lovely, lovely deck. And which suit do we have next? We have the swords. Now, if you know me, you know that the Queen of Swords is one of my favorite court cards. She's my favorite queen, and she's one of my favorite court cards. And I love this Queen of Swords. I love the swords coming out of her head. Yeah, she is the intellect, and she will cut you if you aren't careful with the swords coming out of her head. Love the earrings, the hoop earrings on her. I love that this sword that she is holding very delicately has this little bit of, I don't know, maybe water or air coming off of the tip, right? She knows, I'm sorry, that's not water, those are her fingers. Her fingers are there very delicately touching the tip of this one large sword, right? She knows it's sharp, she knows she needs to be careful, but she's willing to touch it. She's willing to explore it. And she's got a great halo around her head. And I love this King of Swords, right? He is full on holding that sword between his hands. And there's light coming out behind his head. And these rays behind his head, those could be swords too, right? Love the ring on his finger. A very powerful looking king with the garments draped over his shoulders. Just lovely. And here we have the Queen of Wands. Now, there are very few decks that accomplish what I want out of a Queen of Wands, but this deck definitely does. I love that this cat, the black cat, is curling around her neck. Yeah, this cat has fallen asleep on the Queen's shoulders. Love the power in her face as she holds her wand, and there's this glow behind her, and her hair glows, and her earring glows, and she is fiery, and she's sensual, and she's sexy, right? She's got these flowers at her chest. She is sensual, sexy, powerful, and all that I want to see in a Queen of Wands, very vibrantly, right there in front of your eyes. So these are my favorite cards in the deck, but that doesn't mean I don't like the rest of them. It means that they're all wonderful, but these are particularly ones that jump out at me every time they come out of the deck, and I think, yes, I love this card. Yeah? So I love all of these things. Now, how does it read for me? I mentioned how I see the symbolic richness of the cards already, right? And I think I can get some good intuitive information from these cards by the way that the light shines on them, the symbols, how they are arranged on the figures. We can see how there's light and dark on the figures sometimes not. Sometimes they're, even with their eyes closed, the tilt of the head gives a very strong impression of an emotion, right? Even if there's no head or face to look at, these hands give a really strong impression of what these 7 wands are. We've got these 7 wands here twirling in the air, and the figure is holding their one wand and trying to keep them all going there, right? This is, like I said, this is a very powerful deck. Look at this 3 of Cups. We see the 3 different colors of people. Not human colors, not traditionally human colors, but 3 different colors of people. 1 cup, and they seem to be coming out of the 1 cup. They are emerging from the one emotion, divided but united. Yeah. So there's a lot of intuitive information to get out of these cards. Significance comes pretty easily for me. Nothing is all that challenging to me. I told you my favorite cards. I didn't really have any problems with any of the cards. The symbols I think are unique. The way that the symbols are scattered throughout the deck are helpful for reading cards as far as like card interactions. Yeah, the hair, the light, the jewelry, the water flowing or the water not flowing, where the light is sitting, which people have glowing third eyes, or which people have things coming out of their heads. All of these things are very helpful for reading with this deck. And I formed a pretty intense personal connection with this, I think. Did I discover anything new when using this deck? I think my desire to look for symbols that connect cards one to the other has grown when using this deck. My desire for seeing card interactions has grown through this deck, which is wonderful. Now, speaking of using the deck, I'm going to show you the deck interview that I did with this deck. Okay? So I won't show you the whole layout. Well, I'll show you a picture of the layout, but I can't show it to you here because my space is too small. So let me show you a picture of the spread, and we'll talk about what this deck told me it was all about. Okay, so here's the interview spread for this deck. So friends, you saw the questions or the prompts for the deck interview, right? The first card was, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you here to teach me? What blessing can I receive from you? How can we best work together? And what is the probable outcome of our interaction? Right? So the first card, who are you? Remember, I told you that this is my favorite court of the bunch. And so this is the card that the deck told us that it is for me. Yeah, this is a deck for the Queen of Swords. That means for me that this is a deck that is sharp. Sharp as in sharp-witted. It's clever. It is independent. It thinks independently. It's not going to put up with any bullshit. It is going to point out the bullshit, and it is going to cut it off, right? It's going to be very clear, but also very fair, right? It's not an aggressive card. It's not a deck. It's not a deck that's out to get you, but it's not going to put on a pretty face to what's happening. It's going to be very clear and very precise. And sometimes it might hurt, right? It's got a sharp edge to it. which is remarkable considering how soft the images look. There is a sharpness to the deck, which I do admit I recognized the more and more I read with the deck. There is a clarity, not brutalness, but what's softer than brutal? A precision to the deck that I found remarkable. Now, what are its strengths? Now, this might be an odd card for you to think of as a strength card, right? The positive side of this card, the Eight of Swords. And notice how the hands are very loosely bound by this little halo there with these 8 swords around the 2 hands. So how can this be the good thing for this deck? Well, remember, this deck is the Queen of Swords, right? She is going to point out where we have bound ourselves with negative thought, and the strength of this deck is in pointing out where we have bound ourselves negatively. We will be able to find our way out, to release our hands from this self-bondage that we've imposed upon ourselves. That makes sense, yes? And notice notice the hands here. Her hands are very gently, very carefully caressing and touching the sword. These hands are bound, right? So the hands in this deck is, let me use correct English grammar. The hands in this deck are significant, I think. The next one, another hand, but the Ace of Pentacles. And this is the weakness. How is this good card a weakness of this deck? What is its weak point? Well, it could be a couple of things. Maybe this deck is not really great at showing us the opportunity, not really great at showing us the new shiny object, right? It's good at helping us release ourselves from our self-imposed bondage, but it's not here to show us, here, look over here at this bright shiny thing. Does that make sense? So the weakness of this deck is in finding opportunities. But its strength is in release from the negative. And hopefully when we release ourselves from the negative, we'll find our own opportunities. Now, what is the deck here to teach us? Well, it's here to teach me control, organization, this lovely Emperor card. Yeah, to come into my or our own masculine power. Which is interesting because so many of these figures seem to lean more feminine. Still, there's a masculine energy to this deck, which I acknowledge. Yeah? There's a power to this deck. There's a strength to this deck. There's a fiery, active, organizing, putting things in their places quality to this deck, which I think is wonderful. And I love that we've got this ruby ring here, which reminds me of, it shouldn't remind me of Leo maybe, but it reminds me of Leo, which is my sun sign. But yeah, we've got the power. We've got the power, and this deck is here to teach us our own power through the quality of the Queen of Swords, right? And what benefit can we receive? What blessing can we receive? We can receive the blessing of being able to take the first steps on our path to our new creation, right? The Three of Wands. We've made our decisions. Now we want to start moving. And the blessing is that with this deck, we will be able to start our journey in the direction of the creation that we want to manifest. And we notice that we've got the sun rising in the horizon there, in the distance. We've got the sky aglow, making me think a little bit of the Aurora Borealis here, even though the Aurora Borealis would not be there with the sun. Still, I've got that feeling of the glowing sky, the glowing mystical sky in the future with the light shining onto our faces as the sun rises and we start our journey forward. That's the blessing of this deck. After the release, the movement forward, right? So how can we best work with this deck? We can best work with this deck by being Four of Wandsy. Yeah, we can hold the life, the new growth in our hands. and be there in the stability of our passions and our creativity and enjoy what we have made so far. That's how we can work with this deck, by celebrating how far we have come and recognizing the successes we've had. Because remember, this deck is not one to be pointing out, here's the new shiny object to go look for, right? This is the deck that we want to work with as celebration of our successes and celebration of what we have created so far, remembering that the blessing of the deck is that we keep moving forward. Yes? And what is the probable outcome with this deck? Notice we've got the other sword. The end of the sword cycle is the outcome. We finally reach the end of our negative self-talk and the negative thoughts that are weighing us down, and the light starts to come up over our shoulders, and we find the light, we move into the light, and we can turn away from the dark. We can turn away from the negative swords that we have been ramming our head up against. Right? That's a pretty good positive outcome with this deck. It's getting our head space in check so that we find our power and we're able to move forward. This is an excellent deck for getting our head space together with clarity, with independent thought, with precision. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. I think this is a powerful and correct reading with this deck. I really, really do. So, who do I think this deck is best for? Well, I think it's okay for beginners, but if you are a beginner with this deck, I would say that you would really benefit from having another text to work through this deck with. I mean, we do have a lot of the symbols from, for example, the Smith-Waite deck represented here. Not all of them, but most of them, in different portions of each one of the cards. For example, here we got the plants, here we got the 4 wands, here we got the hands up celebrating, perhaps. But I would say this deck is really more for the person who's already got the Smith-Waite deck under their belts and is ready to dive into the Smith-Waite style tradition with more focus and more color and more vibrancy, if that makes sense. Now that's who I think this deck is best for. I enjoyed the readings I did with this deck. I found them helpful. I found them clear. Now, I will mention that my particular copy of this deck, there were printing errors, you might say. There are ink drips that smudged here and there, which I don't think is part of the artwork for the deck. So, but I also don't think you would necessarily need to worry about that. For example, here are some dots on the Ace of Pentacles card. I don't think you'll need to worry about that for the 3rd edition. But honestly, these little dots and flecks of color throughout the cards that were probably not intentional don't bother me all that much. Yeah? And my personal experience with this deck is very positive, and I highly recommend it. I recommend it for its artwork. I recommend it for the use of symbol and the weaving of symbol throughout the deck. I recommend it for its being beyond concerns of diversity and inclusivity, because it is an entirely different world. And I would highly recommend this deck. Now, as far as next steps, you might say, as far as next steps, I would, like I said, recommend this deck. And again, I'll have the information to either the Kickstarter launch page or the Kickstarter notify me page in the description box. I will put a link to Emma Zhang's webpage so you can see her page's information, the information for the new edition of the deck on her page as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've used this deck or any of the decks created, the first edition or the second edition of this deck, let us know what you think about it. How do you enjoy using it, or do you find it challenging? How do you feel about your connection with either the first or the second edition if you have and use it? Let us all know. Also, if you're into tarot reviews like this, like the one I'm doing, I've got my decks selected for the next video. But if you want to give me a suggestion for the one after that, let me know in the description box below. I'd be very happy to take up the challenge of a new deck, and maybe I already have it. You never know. I might already have it. So let me know if there's a deck you'd like me to dive into for you. I would be very happy to do that for you. My hope is that this will continue to be a monthly video series. And if you want a private reading from me with this deck or any other deck, my website address and the QR code for my online reading shop will be appearing before your eyes in just a moment. So, friends, thank you. Thank you for joining me on this walkthrough. I hope it was good for you as it is for me. And I really hope that you do fund Emma Zhang on her Kickstarter, because I really think that her work is worth sharing broadly across the world. I love her take on the tarot, and I love her design of tarot cards. I hope you do too. So friends, thank you. Thank you. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.